lot, and it's a problem that I see with a lot of other entrepreneurs. They're willing to jump into the business, but it's like operating a business without any sort of plan or clarity is like driving and not knowing how much gas is in your car. You just don't know how far you can go or where you should go. If you go there, can you get back home?
What is up, everybody? Hey, it's me, Lucky. It's been a while, but I am back. So, as you know, we talk about mind, body, then work. And here I have Mr. Medvis Jackson here. We're going into professional wellness. So, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Medvis Jackson. I live in the city of Detroit, Michigan. I grew up here. I went to school Northwest Detroit, grew up with 3 siblings. And for college, I went away to go to school in upstate New York, tiny little liberal arts college called Colgate University. Was there for 4 years, graduated, and then I moved to New York City, was there for 6 years. So I left the state for 10 years. And I sometimes say that I left during some of the most important 10 years of Detroit's history. Bankruptcy happened. You had some pretty turbulent political periods for our elected officials here in Detroit in terms of changes of leadership. I would say almost changes of old guards and introduction of a new wave of new leaders who came in while I was away. So I say all of that to say that by the time I came back to Detroit, the city had changed a lot. And I had changed a lot too. Moving to New York City, my first job was at a PR firm. It was not the right fit for me. I was there for a year and 4 months, year and 2 months or so. It was a large New York City PR firm, and so it was really fast paced. And I learned a lot there. I learned a lot about paying attention to detail, being proactive, how to navigate kind of organizational politics, how to live in a city with a really low salary. Very expensive city. That was a great starting place for me. Fast forward, I moved back here in 2017 for Challenge Detroit. And ever since that program did a great job of injecting me into the city's small business ecosystem and also its kind of nonprofit ecosystem and learning, how change can be made in a city. So yeah, here I am.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That is spectacular. So this is a treat, you all. This is a treat. Okay. So going with your experience, what would you say the state of going into businesses right now? And you can even go into Detroit if you like.
So in my day-to-day work, I will say that there's a lot of programs out there that are going to provide entry points for folks who want to want to build upon an idea that they've had, or if they're looking for entrepreneurial training, so how to develop themselves as a leader and a person who takes plans and visions and executes them.
Nice.
Then there's also a lot of technical assistance programs, a fair number of technical assistance programs that will help cover some of the costs associated with business. So hiring a consultant, hiring a website designer, hiring doing tax prep. So they're not going to pay for any of your hard costs like equipment, or not going to cover any rent expenses or building purchases or renovations, but they will cover a lot of the associated business services that you need to kind of accelerate your business. And when I was living in New York City, I started a web design company where I was building websites, but I started first as helping small businesses with their data analytics. I found that I didn't have the industry experience to have a large client Rolodex. So getting, just hitting the pavement and getting customers was really it wasn't very efficient. And so I shifted more towards website because many small business owners didn't understand the importance of data analytics and driving customers to their platforms, but they did have the general concept of the importance of a website. So, so I've been a small business owner myself before, and I'm actually working on a new idea now.
Very nice.
And so, and the first one was service. The next one will be product based. So I understand, some of the challenges that will face entrepreneurs from just my personal experience and just from what I'm doing currently. In terms of the climate, I will say that I think there needs to be a little more discussion around the state of the U.S. economy and the global economy, interest rate, layoffs, and how is this like previous periods where the economy started to cool off, right? Or are we just in another cycle that won't lead to a recession? But I think that when we're talking about, especially when we're telling communities of color, particularly African Americans, Black, Afro descendant people, and then not Black or non-Black, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, and so on, that this is your ticket out of poverty or marginalization. You have to be very careful with that, because folks are investing a lot of their time and effort into an activity that might not be generating a lot of revenue or profit in the short term. And many times with business, you're putting a lot into the business before you make any money. So I think there needs to be a lot of discussion around how much debt is being made available to entrepreneurs, and debt is necessary for a lot of different types of businesses. From if you're a machinery heavy business, or you need real estate to do your business, you can't do the business out of your home, you're going to need to get a location. But many times you have to take on debt to do that. So just helping people understand what debt is, and how to manage debt, and how to work with lenders, right? How to communicate in a timely fashion, how to make sure you're documenting things properly so that you understand the nature of the obligation that you now have. So those are things. And then lastly is this, how to go to market sooner is something that's very important, right? It's, I'm pushing the business owners that I'm currently working with, small business owners, is getting them to start thinking very, ABCs of like, how do you get a customer, and breaking it down to like, okay, how many sales do you want to do this week? Like, what's your target of revenue for this week? Because the sooner you can make money, the sooner you can make mistakes. The sooner you make mistakes, the sooner you learn how to do your business a little bit better. So just getting people out of the idea stage a little sooner and getting a little faster into making some money.
Oh, that's spectacular. I got chills. Okay. So I was going to ask what tips, but I kind of feel like you definitely went into that. Would you say there are any additional resources you would direct people?
So my first bit of advice to everyone who thinks that they're crazy enough to go into entrepreneurship. There was this funny interview I was listening to, and there was a professor from Cal Berkeley, and she jokingly said, "If it turns out one of the best ways to go into bankruptcy is to start a small business." The business entrepreneurship is very difficult, and many people sometimes can take on more risk than they're able to manage. So my first tip would be, make the distinction between being entrepreneurial and becoming an entrepreneur. And maybe I'm being too, you could say, pedantic or semantic or whatever, but I think that distinction is very important, because many of us like the security of a 9-to-5, or we just have very serious obligations in life. And so by becoming entrepreneurial in our thinking, it can just help us to rethink the way we manage our households. Absolutely. To rethink the way we show up at our 9-to-5 job, to how we take on responsibility, how do we add value to where we work currently. It may mean that some of us actually never leave our 9-to-5, and we keep that job, but we take maybe 5% or 10%. I would say between 1 to 5. I wouldn't recommend anything over 5% of your net worth. Know what your net worth is, right? So do a personal finance statement, right? Which you can get from SCORE or the SBA, and you can just really go through what you own, what you owe, and how much you earn. And then from there, you might just become an investor, right? So you might have the friend who's crazy enough to quit their job, to sell other stuff and start a business, and you're not ready to do that, or you're never able to do that. And so you find ways, again, between 1 max 5% of your net worth, and you would put that into small businesses. And you can do that through various legal documented platforms where you're protected. So Honeycomb Capital, if you don't necessarily want to make money doing it, you can do Kiva. If you have friends, just get a lawyer involved from the start and put everything in writing. Just because obviously you don't want to just do things on a handshake. And then lastly, if you're ready to take that jump, right? Whether it's something that you're going to do on a seasonal basis or part-time basis, or if you're going to do a full-time endeavor, or something that you intend to become full-time in it at some point, just becoming entrepreneurial mindset. So changing the stuff you take in on a daily basis in terms of content, right? So like, if you're on Twitter or YouTube, mute all the fight videos, Mute all the celebrity news, unless that's your business, right? But like, really start filling your mind with content and from reputable, so sources of business news, startup news. So you're gaining new concepts. You're aware of how the industry that you're trying to get in works, and how do other people manage your companies, right? So Fast Company is a good online resource to use. TechCrunch is great. If you want to just kind of learn fundamentals, Investopedia, if you want to nerd out on that stuff. I follow this Week in Startups. A lot of it's more applicable to folks who are looking to raise large sums of money and grow like massive multi-million-dollar companies, but they just have some very good fundamentals regarding how to run a company on there that I really enjoy that show. And I don't even agree with them politically or ideologically on a lot of things, but they just are really good with fundamentals, and that's what you're going to need to start embracing. So like, if you have no design skills, where would you find a designer? What skills do you acquire, right? So I have entrepreneurs who are like, I don't like computers, or I'm not good with Excel, and there are some entrepreneur jobs that don't require any of that, right? You just need to learn how to run inventories. You need to understand supply chains, distribution and stuff like that. But I will say that as our economy further digitizes, your inability to evolve in some capacity, in some direction regarding a technical skill can hurt. So I would just say, before you even make the plunge, just do an assessment of like, entrepreneurship. It's really the French word for just undertaking, right? How do you take on risk? How do you rethink your space? How do you rethink your activity? How do you rethink your time? And how do you see value? And how do you find value and profit off of it? So, start with the mind, start thinking about the stuff you take into yourself, and then you can be prepared for any risk that you actually eventually do take on.
Okay. And I don't want to take too much of your time, but a question just popped in my head.
Please, this is great.
Okay. I don't want to let you go. What is the most common mistake that you see when you are working with entrepreneurs? What's the most common one?
Great question. So the first mistake, I'll start with myself. When I started Hindsight Metrics, which I still, will do freelance work out of that, whether it's data, digital infrastructure type work for companies, or it's web design type work. I didn't write a business plan. I didn't think I needed one. I didn't do financial projections. I didn't think I needed it, right? Part of it was because I was dead broke in Brooklyn in an apartment, and I just needed to pay rent that month. So I was like, I could either try and hustle up some client, or I can sit in this apartment and work on a business plan that's not going to pay any bills. Nice. As I started getting clients, I also started working part-time at a web company called Wix.com, which people may have heard of. Yeah. I had the time in which I could have sat down an hour a week and started putting together a business plan. I had the time to start putting together financial projections and start hitting revenue targets. Those documents help you to make decisions. Bad decisions, mistakes are very expensive. So I will say the biggest mistake I see from entrepreneurs is kind of similar to those entrepreneurs who are like, I'm just not good at Excel, or I'm not good at computers, I'm not good at email. I had a business owner that, I work with through a program here in Detroit, and they're like, I don't know how to use, like, what's a Google Calendar? They have a Gmail. They didn't even have the Google Calendar app on their iPhone. And I had to help them download it for them. This person's like, we associate that kind of digital, gap with folks who are much older. This person's not even 40, right? So that inability to there's a musician that I put on a show with in Harlem years ago, Big Griffin. He's great. Big Griffin's great. Go buy his music. And he has a quote. He says, "I don't want to ripe. I always want to stay green and grow. So once you ripe, you fall off the tree and you die. And that's it, right? You peaked. That's it. But if you stay green and grow, you're always going to be vibrant. You're always taking on new skills and improving yourself. So, entrepreneurs who just say they kind of cap themselves out, or they don't make that time to plan, I think that's one of the worst things you can do, because if you entrepreneurship itself is about risk. So if you're not even willing to sit down and identify the risk of your own business, if you're not willing to identify opportunity of your business and understand, like, who are my partners in this, right? Who are my actual business partners? Who are the organizations that I need to attract clients and customers? Who are the, like, and then also understanding like the legal and like tax processes. Like, I fell behind on taxes when I first started. Badly. Didn't understand like the fact that I filed as a C corp instead of an LLC. I knew the difference, but I think there were some financial considerations I made, but I didn't really understand. Even when I chose to do the C corp, I didn't file on time for the S corp, and then so I got double taxed. And like, those are just like small mistakes that can be costly. Pricing. Right? Many people don't really think through their pricing, and obviously your pricing models will always evolve, right? You find better ways to package services or to, especially if you're in a service-based business, to avoid the risk of lack of payment or a client who just got defaults. So having sat down and been more open to planning would have helped me a lot. And it's a problem that I see with a lot of other entrepreneurs, that they're willing to jump into the business, but it's like, operating a business without any sort of plan or clarity is like driving and not knowing how much gas is in your car. You just don't know how far you can go or where you should go. If you go there, can you get back home?
Right. Absolutely. Someone told me a bit ago, they said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So yeah, those words definitely stick in my mind. Thank you so much. And now I have to ask you, where can viewers find you? Where can we find you online?
So I'm all over social media. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn or follow me on LinkedIn. I'm also, so I'm on Instagram as Medvis Jackson, but I'm going to be restarting a Instagram page called Culture, Kulchah. And it's kind of like a phonetic New York City pronunciation of culture. So Culture. And the whole idea was it's like highlighting, the idea evolved, but how this last iteration was me posting, small business concepts on there. And I think I'm going to go back to that because it's highlighting, Black, Hispanic men and women, Native American men and women who have started companies that could use a little exposure. And I think it's good for us to just kind of, especially living in a city like Detroit that's predominantly Black, African American, is to see ourselves doing things. And then just putting out business principles, right? So how do you calculate the cost of customer acquisition? How do you calculate the lifetime value of a customer? What is a churn? What's a churn rate? What are these concepts? Monthly recurring revenue. What's a subscription model? What's a profit and loss statement? How's a profit and loss statement different from a cash flow statement? So I think a lot of that literacy around business and around finance are things that can only help an entrepreneur, whether they're selling hair extensions, or they're going to become a general contractor, or they want a landscaping business. These are just things that I think you should know. Just because it's like, as a human being, you should know what blood pressure is, right? You should know what blood sugar is, right? This helps you maintain a healthy company. So you follow me on those platforms. Message if you have a question.
Oh, awesome. And I'll go ahead and I'll add it on the screen. So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. So everyone, he just, oh my gosh, he just gave you so much information. I have to personally thank you. And I'm sure my viewers, thank you for the information you just completely spilled on us. That was fantastic.
Can I add just one more thing?
Please, go ahead.
Definitely check out, the New Economy Initiative is one of kind of like an umbrella entity for what's happening with small business in Detroit. So check them out. There's the Build Institute, there's Tech Town, there's the Motor City Match Program, there's Prosperous. These are all organizations. There's the Metro Detroit Black Builders, a Business Alliance, and there's more, right? Access operates out of Dearborn, but also in Detroit as well. So these are all entities, Detroit Means Business. These are all entities that could help you take that first step towards your vision, right? As a potential business owner. And if you're looking to become like a building owner, you want to at least talk to people, these organizations can still help you, right? Because you help you find tenants. And then lastly, you want to become an investor, right? There's other programs out there too. And I can go on and on and on. So hit me up on social media about other resources that might be more relevant to you. But check out those, especially the New Economy Initiative. From there, you can get to like everything else.
Very nice. Look at this is a man full of information, full of resources, everybody. My goodness, I don't want to let him go. So you're going to have to come back.
Awesome. No, I would love to. This has been great.
Oh, absolutely.
Congratulations on your show.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And so I have to go ahead and close. As I always close, I say, come close to me, if you will. Say, I am lucky from now on. Look in the mirror and believe it. I am lucky from now on. All right. Until next time, you all. Thank you so much.